an independent analysis of European defense capabilities and strategic policy.
The strategic landscape of Northern Europe is witnessing a quiet but profound transformation in land mobility doctrine. It signals a departure from the expeditionary focus of the past 2 decades, moving instead toward a posture of territorial defense and high-intensity peer conflict. At the center of this shift lies the Common Armoured Vehicle System, or CAVS. This program transcends simple equipment procurement. It represents a fundamental realignment of Nordic and potentially continental industrial capacity. The recent acceleration of this program suggests that Finland and Sweden are not merely upgrading their vehicle fleets. They are effectively constructing a unified interoperability standard, one that could mirror the dominance of the Leopard 2 main battle tank in the tracked domain. And this development warrants a systemic analysis, not just of the hardware, but of the industrial, doctrinal, and logistical architecture emerging around the Patria 6x6 platform. The operational logic driving the adoption of the 6x6 platform over heavier 8x8 alternatives reveals a calculated prioritization. It favors mobility and quantity over absolute survivability. For nearly 20 years, Western procurement was driven by the requirements of asymmetric warfare in arid environments. Protection against improvised explosive devices necessitated heavy V-hulls and massive armor packages. This pushed vehicle weights often beyond 30 tons, as seen in platforms like the Boxer. However, the geographic reality of the high north is characterized by deep snow, marshland, dense forests, and crucially, a limited road network. This terrain renders such heavy platforms operationally restrictive. There is a structural constraint often overlooked in technical specifications: the bridges. Much of the rural infrastructure in Karelia and northern Sweden cannot support the axle load of a 30-ton combat vehicle. The decision to standardize on a lighter 24-ton chassis indicates a doctrinal pivot back to mechanized mobility. Here, the ability to traverse difficult terrain, cross rural bridges, and avoid engagement is prioritized over the ability to absorb direct fire. The 6x6 configuration offers a lower ground pressure profile. This is crucial for operations in the Lapland wilderness, where heavier systems might simply flounder. Furthermore, the economic dimension of this program highlights a critical recognition. Mass is a quality of its own. In an era where the unit cost of frontline combat vehicles has spiraled, the CAVS program represents an attempt to reverse the cost curve. By leveraging commercial off-the-shelf components, including Scania diesel engines and suspension parts adapted from heavy trucks, the program achieves a remarkable price point. This allows for a one-to-one replacement of aging fleets rather than a capability reduction. This affordability is strategic. It permits the generation of force density. A defense force that can field 400 moderately protected vehicles possesses different operational options than one that can only afford 100 exquisitely protected ones. This is particularly relevant when covering the vast, sparsely populated frontages of the Finnish-Russian border. The industrial structure of the CAVS program introduces a model of multinational cooperation that attempts to avoid the pitfalls of previous European defense projects. Rather than a rigid work-share agreement that often inflates costs, the lead nation model employed here allows for a more streamlined decision-making process. The recent engagement involving the supply of Kongsberg remote weapon stations underscores this integration. This specific acquisition is significant because it standardizes the fire control and engagement interfaces across national lines. In practice, this means a Swedish mechanized infantry squad could theoretically operate a Finnish vehicle with minimal friction. This is a level of interoperability that NATO has long sought, but rarely achieved at the tactical level. However, the expansion of the program to include Germany introduces both strategic validation and potential complexity. German interest in the platform, specifically to replace its aging Fuchs fleet, would effectively elevate the Nordic standard to a European one. This creates a massive logistical footprint that simplifies cross-border maintenance. Yet, this expansion also risks introducing divergent requirements. Managing the tension between the specific austere requirements of the Arctic operator and the broader requirements of Central European armies will be a test of the program's governance. Beyond the basic troop carrier, the platform's modularity suggests a shift toward organic mobile firepower. The potential integration of the turreted mortar system, known as NEMO, transforms the vehicle from a battle taxi into a shoot-and-scoot artillery asset. This capability is vital for the dispersed operations doctrine favored by the Nordics, where units must operate independently without constant air support. From a survivability standpoint, the reliance on the 6x6 platform is not without its trade-offs. The decision to accept a lower protection level places the vehicle and its crew at risk from modern autocannons and anti-tank guided munitions. This vulnerability highlights a conscious acceptance of risk. It is predicated on the assumption that these vehicles will operate under the cover of complex terrain, supported by combined arms elements, rather than serving as breakthrough assets. The proliferation of first-person view drones further complicates this calculus. While the integration of remote weapon stations offers some counter-drone capability, the fundamental design remains susceptible. This suggests that while the CAVS is an excellent mobility solution, it cannot be viewed as a direct substitute for infantry fighting vehicles in high-threat zones. Rather, it is a protected mobility asset that bridges the gap between soft-skinned trucks and heavy armor. Finally, the security of supply aspect reflects a specific Nordic anxiety regarding resilience, known as the concept of total defense. The requirement for local production capabilities is not merely an economic stimulus, it is a hedging strategy. By utilizing commercial engine components, the maintenance burden can theoretically be shared with the civilian sector. In a crisis, a civilian heavy truck mechanic in a remote Swedish town could likely repair the powertrain of a frontline combat vehicle. This reduces reliance on specialized military technicians and fragile supply lines. In the event of a crisis in the Baltic Sea that disrupts maritime shipping, the ability for Sweden or Latvia to manufacture spare parts independently becomes critical. This moves the logistics model from just-in-time efficiency to just-in-case redundancy. Ultimately, the CAVS program demonstrates a pragmatic, systems-level approach to modernization. It favors continuity and sustainability over technological novelty. By refining an existing concept rather than attempting to develop a revolutionary new platform, Sweden and Finland have managed to deliver capability at speed. The emerging fleet serves as a physical manifestation of the deepened defense integration between Helsinki and Stockholm. It moves beyond political declarations to the concrete reality of shared steel and shared systems.